Hi,
Hey,
Jesse.
Jesse.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. How's Clyde doing?
Better.
He's doing better.
Okay. We
Yeah,
see.
got him on a different, like a raw diet now.
Okay.
So it's been
Did
a
you guys
little.
talk to Maddie? Sorry.
We
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
That's as a result of talking to Maddie.
Yeah, we decided to go with the raw diet.
Okay. Because what was the loose stool?
Just like constant bouts of like diarrhea.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the last probably 4 or 5 days.
Oh no, he meant like why we changed it.
Yeah, it was because of loose stool. Yeah.
And then it was just garbage food. He was on that Royal Canine, so we needed to change it anyway.
Okay.
Finally, as of
Yeah.
basically yesterday and today, the stool is like, I think he's adjusting to this new food, the raw food, and like normal stool. He's going like normal times after he eats, within a half hour, so give or take. Literally as of like,
It got a little weird there for.
it was getting a little hairy for a couple days.
Just because I think it was like the transition we're assuming from the kibble to the raw. So yeah.
Sure. Okay, good. Yeah, and if you have any nutrition stuff, just shoot her an email.
Okay.
She can help you with all that stuff.
Perfect.
Good. Anything else?
Well, I guess we did want to ask you, like, as a result of all these GI issues we've been having with him and continue to have up until today, fingers crossed, we kind of fell behind on being really strict with his like potty schedule.
Sure.
And being really strict with like kennel training. So like at night, he has been waking us up again, like around like, let's say we go down around 9:30, 10 o'clock. He's waking up around like 1, 2, and then he's waking up again at like 5:45, 6:15.
Okay.
So, and we're like appeasing to him and because he's had these issues, and every time we take him out, it's productive. He like goes to the bathroom.
Like diarrhea, yeah.
But it's really taken us back a lot of steps, and
Sure.
he's just kind of like a little out of control now with respect to the kennel at night. So I don't know, like what you suggest, like should we be more strict when he's going through all these GI issues, or is there like
you have to pick and choose battles,
right?
Because it's not, if everything was normal, stool was normal, all that stuff was normal, then I would say, just we let him sleep through the night. But with that transitioning stage and then with the GI, like let's say, like my dogs right now currently can hold it, up to 24 hours, like if it's raining and stuff. But once they're more like seniors, like my stepdad, his dogs, like they would literally just start peeing where they were, and it's like potty training kind of goes out the window because it's just really old, so in this case, it's not him, it's just you're in a transitioning phase. So it's like, all right, we're going to just put this on the back burner for now, get some consistency with his bowel movements in terms of firmness or whatever. And then once all that is like, you feel pretty confident about, then we go back to instilling more of a stricter structure.
Okay.
That makes sense.
That makes
So
sense, yeah.
last week, I think it was just, we knew, you could tell by the way he's barking, it's like he's got to go to the bathroom. So we were just
which is a positive, right? Because he is letting you know.
Yeah.
So that is positive that he's letting us know that, and we're reacting by opening the kennel and letting him
Yeah,
out.
I mean, he's got diarrhea. Like my dogs, like, I potty train my dogs just the same way that I'm telling you to potty train Clyde here. And like when my Chihuahua like has diarrhea, I can always tell because like if I'm sitting at my desk, he'll come up to me and put his paws on me, and he just like has a really anxious face, like he's panting, his eyes are big, and I go, "You got diarrhea," and I'll run him out. Sure enough, diarrhea. Same thing with my Pit. She'll like just look at me and she'll just kind of step and like whine and like be panting. I'm like, "You have diarrhea,"
Yeah.
and I'll let them out. And in their case, it's not developing a bad habit. It's just active communication. Like, hey, I know we usually have a schedule, but this is out of the ordinary.
Okay.
So, so that's good. Because definitely, trying to force a structure when his insides are having this just, these inconsistencies would be more detrimental than good.
Okay.
Good.
You know,
That's good to
if
know.
you're not gonna learn anything from it, you got to go. You got to go.
Yeah.
So, so that's fine. And then you said today is when his stool started to look more so normal. Is that correct?
Yeah, last night,
Yeah.
yesterday, and then today, like all day today so far, all 3 times it's been normal.
Did Maddie give you a time frame in terms of what to expect in the transitioning period?
No, we need to touch base with her about what we
Yeah.
ended up doing and stuff.
Sure. You could either shoot her an email and just say like, hey, today marks the first day he's had normal bowel movements. And me personally, like I would, if I see 2 to 3 days of consistent bowel movements, like being firm and not loose or not diarrhea or whatever, then I would say most likely now you're past that transitioning phase. I've not done raw myself, so I don't know how long that looks or how long that takes or whatever. But she can definitely give you a better idea of time frame. And then I would just give it a couple of days and hopefully you get a couple more days of consistent poops, and then I would think you would be fine unless you change something in the diet again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in my opinion, did she give you an idea of like what it may have possibly been aside from like, Royal Canin being a not good food? Like, did she say maybe it's the protein or?
She did say like it could be multiple factors, right? So it's kind of like it could be the protein, it could be just the kibble and what's in this specific one.
Or the after effects from the Giardia.
Or or it could be like the Giardia kind of like reshedding, I guess, the way she described it. So it just seemed like we skipped straight to the raw because it seemed like that was the most, like there was like no fillers. Like he's already shown us that he's a pretty sensitive like track. So we're like, all right, let's try raw, and maybe it would be easier to rule out certain factors when there's less ingredients and stuff going into it. So
Right.
no, she didn't know. Long short of it, she was just like, it could be a couple things.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I would just keep an eye on it. And then typically what I suggest, and you can, approach this however you'd like, is for puppies, I suggest that people rotate the proteins.
Yeah.
Did she talk to you about that, or have we talked about that before?
She did, and then the lady at the store did too.
Yeah, she suggested a pet shop and not too far from our place, and she said that the staff's super knowledgeable. They're all nutritionists, so on and so forth, and they suggested rotating the protein. So we went through one batch of beef, and then we just went and bought some more yesterday and got them on pork now. So we're gonna kind of keep with that trend.
Okay. Did they give you an idea of like when to rotate, like after so many, like, because the way I did it with my dogs was because they were doing kibble, is they do bag, and after each bag they would rotate the protein. So like they would have a bag for like a month or like a couple of weeks or whatever. So what's your rotation schedule like?
Well,
Right now it's a week.
Well, not necessarily. So the first bag we bought was only a 3-pound bag of the frozen raw, and so we got through that in like 5-6 days. And then when I went back, they suggested change it to a new protein, but then now we have a 6-pound bag, so I think that one should last us like 12 days.
Okay.
And then
It doesn't seem like it's like a set frequency as much as it's like, get through your bag, unless you're buying in like giant bulk. Then I'm sure they would have been a little more like informational as to like when you switch the protein. But because we're going through these bags within a week or two.
And that's what I'm curious too, because like economically, I want to go, they've got a 25-pound bag. So do we buy one of those, or do we buy 2 25-pound bags of different protein? And then, what would they say we should do? So I'm not.
My only concern would be if you're changing them, let's say week by week, is because he already has kind of a sensitive stomach. I'm just wondering if you're going to keep yourself in this, like the first 5 days, it's diarrhea before it's normal. And then we transition to another thing, and then it's another 5 days. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that would be my only concern. Now, if it really was just the quality of food and he's going to do well on raw, like I would assume it's going to, you expect a little looseness, but as long as it's not like terrible, it should be fine. Otherwise, I don't think it's a problem to do a 25-day bag, because that's essentially like what I would do, except, you're doing raw and I was doing kibble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And maybe the promising thing is we put him on the beef was the first raw, and then that was the first 5 or 6 days. And then we just switched to pork, and day 1 and 2 were the first 2 days on pork, but were also the first days he had normal stool.
Mm.
So
So he didn't have normal stool with the beef?
no, the first
Okay.
5 days that he was on that raw beef, it was not normal.
Okay, and then he finished the raw beef before going to the pork. Okay,
Yeah.
so I would make a note of that, and the next time you come back to the beef, see what happens.
Good call.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Because so the with rotating the foods, I'm assuming they explained it to you, like the enzymes, developing the enzymes to like break down proteins. So this helps prevent developing allergies or just the inability to digest certain proteins.
Yeah.
But genetically, like my friend, like he can't eat fish. Like he's severely allergic to fish, right? It is what it is. There's nothing that he developed because he didn't eat fish. He just ate fish one day and like, holy crap, like his throat swelled up, right? So for some dogs, genetically, he just may not, his system can't digest beef, maybe, So then the next time you come back to the beef, what I would do is actually do another small batch
Yeah.
and see what happens, and then maybe buy another small batch. And then if it's consistent all the way through, it's like, hey, it looks like beef just isn't, he just doesn't tolerate beef. Cross it off the menu. In my opinion, nothing you can do about that. That's just how the system is.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah. Other than that, you might find he's going to drink less water because they get moisture from the food.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, I have noticed that. And
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was getting worried because he was going to the bathroom so often and then
Mhm.
not drinking that much water that I thought he was like dehydrating himself.
Yeah, no, he's gaining moisture from the food, which is why, with some types of kibbles, dogs will drink more water because it dehydrates them. Yeah. So you might have to once things are normalized in terms of his potty routine and stuff, you might have to try to figure that out now, because now we're controlling water anymore. I mean, you're controlling it to an extent because you're controlling it through the food that he eats, right? So if he eats 3 times a day, like you're technically controlling that. But then you got to think about the in-between waters too, to see if you can get some kind of routine going once everything's settled on his potty breaks and how much he has to pee, and then how much does he drink now, versus how much he drank before. Because the general rule of thumb is an ounce per pound, and that's what the dog that does eat kibble. So it might be different for a guy who's eating raw. So
Okay.
Okay.
And did I tell you about like how you could tell when they're overhydrated and all that stuff? Like,
No.
if you watch their stream, like when they're peeing, if it's clear, if it starts clear and it ends clear, there's more to go. Okay. Once a puppy or dog starts to hit the end of the bladder, it starts to turn yellow.
Okay.
Okay. So then once you see like dark yellow, then that's like towards the end of the bladder. So that's like a mistake that a lot of people make, is they take the puppy out. The puppy pees really quick and they think the puppy's done, but it's been all clear water or all clear urine, So then I'm like, nope, there's more pee to go, because I know that puppy's not at the end of the bladder yet.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
So whenever he goes, if it starts yellow and ends yellow, you're good for the most part. But if it starts clear and ends clear, he's got more to go.
Okay.
Okay.
So just keep him out for maybe a little longer and see if he'll.
Yep, walk him around a bit more and stuff. See if he goes again, and then if he doesn't, I would just be either highly suspicious, or I might just go back to the kennel, and take him out the next time until I know he's completely empty.
Okay.
Okay. Also, pooping less should be a thing as well, because he's not getting all those preservatives and add-ins, the fillers or whatever.
Okay.
So you should start seeing smaller or less frequent poops as well.
That's what they had said at the stores also too. So
Which
that's,
at first it was the exact opposite. Like he was pooping so much. But I don't know if that's just transition stuff.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the water in between the meals, is that because he's having raw,
Mhm.
or and is that because like I've noticed after he eats, he doesn't go for the water. So you're saying because he doesn't drink while he's having his meal, you need to squeeze it in some other time?
Yeah, you know, like, so I mean, depending on where you're at. So I think before it was like water with each meal,
Yeah.
right? Um, but if he's not drinking water because now he's eating the raw and getting hydrated through that, he may need water in between because he's still going to drink water,
Yeah.
right? It's just not going to be, it sounds like, at those times that he's eating. So like, let's say you feed him breakfast, you know, he does his potty, and then before breakfast and lunch, maybe he goes for a little stroll. You know, you come back, give him a little bit of water, see if he takes to it. You know, if he doesn't, you put it away, you give him his lunch. And you could give water with his lunch and then just learn what his pattern is.
Okay.
You know, if it's like, oh, like after lunch, he eats, drinks a little bit of water, or between lunch and dinner, that walk there, he'll drink a little bit of water. You
Right.
know, you just start to figure out what the new pattern is.
Yeah. This is Charlie. That's Clyde's brother.
How's he liking the whole brothers getting a raw?
Way. Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
He does know. It seems like he knows when it's feeding time for Clyde because he comes in and he wants his food too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's quite an he instigates.
Yeah.
He like
He's the big brother picking on
Yeah.
Clyde. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're finally getting along
They're
pretty
playing,
well now.
yeah.
They're playing and
Nice.
yeah, he's not like hissing at him and he'll smack him around, but it's like play like he smacks
Yeah.
him around when I mess with him too. So
Yeah. No, that's how they play.
Yeah. I know it like took me a while to get used to because I'm like, I don't know if they're playing because he's like the cat's just like smacking him the whole
Yeah.
time.
That's how they play. Yeah.
It's so weird.
I mean, because people, they interpret it as like, you know, I guess you say violent or you know, whatever. But I mean, that's just how they play. So,
yeah, that's all they got, right? Their mouth and their paws. Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah.
that's how they establish the rules, you know.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I've had, you know, households that would have like a big German Shepherd and the cat was like the boss of the German Shepherd because when it was a puppy, it would just smack it around. And then like the dog isn't aware of like, oh, now I'm like 10 times bigger than you. They just grew up with the mentality like, you always bullied me around.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's even one, someone had a parrot. They used to bully their Rottweiler.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, when the Rottweiler was a puppy, he would be walking around and the parrot would just swoop and like just peck at him.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
like, when the Rottie was full grown, when he would see the parrot, he would just walk out the room.
That's funny.
Don't blame the Rottie. Yeah.
We got a
that's terrifying.
pretty funny video this morning. We got a new like bed for Clyde and the cat loves it. So cat was sleeping in it and then Clyde came over and started pulling the bed and just pulling the cat all around the house.
And the cat was just
Cat's
sitting
just
there,
sitting
like
there.
not even phased.
He's like, I'm not getting up.
We're like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, no, it's funny how those things work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, on that note, though, so sometimes, actually, a lot of times, like when they're playing, we know we like let them play. But if the cat is like trying to go from like point A to point B, and like Clyde's like on top of him, like you know, like Clyde's just like wanting to play, and we just like want him to leave the cat alone so the cat can like walk around the house without being jumped on. We're correcting him. Should we not be doing that, and should we just let the cat correct him as the cat pleases, or like?
Well, like when you correct, like how often do you find them correcting him? How often do you find yourself correcting them for that behavior?
A lot.
Well, what do you mean?
Like whenever like they're both on the ground walking around, we're usually correcting Clyde because he's usually interested in the cat.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll correct him with like a verbal no as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he responds really well to that. Like if we say no, he'll back off the cat.
But I'm just wondering if we should even say anything,
or should we just let him have at it? Yeah.
So you can do a couple of things. One is you could ignore it and let the was it Charlie?
Yeah.
Let Charlie handle it, right? But like maybe Charlie doesn't mind. Okay, then it's not going to stop. So then if you think to yourself, well, this is something that we don't want to, you know, because like right now Charlie could be patient with them, but that could change in a year of dealing with that, right? Is You just be proactive about it and address it how you are. However, remember, dogs don't tell each other no, right? Like if they did say no, they would say no and like follow up with like some kind of physicality, because the physicality is ultimately what's going to stop the behavior,
Right.
right? So like let's say like so right now I was like, do you find yourselves correcting them a lot for this particular behavior? And you said yes. Okay. So the first thing I started thinking, I'm going, the correction is too soft, the physical correction, or you're using verbal corrections, which are in the moment effective because you see Clyde back away, but he doesn't retain it to not do it again. That's
Yeah.
why it's a lot, right? So for me, if I had Clyde and Charlie, every time I would see Clyde pursue Charlie, it would be, you know, a bonk or a Cesar Millan touch. I personally would do no words because I wanted to learn when the cat is going point A to point B, leave the cat alone, right?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because the cat doesn't like it in those moments. Like the cat will like scurry away and like jump to the nearest place where he can get away from him, kind of thing.
Because I have another puppy right now, very similar to you, except it's a puppy with a like that lives with like an 8-year-old Maltese. And it
Oh,
was the same thing every time the puppy was out with the Maltese, it was harassing the Maltese.
yeah.
So I told them, you have to correct the puppy to teach coexistence. And for the first 2 weeks, it was they wanted nothing to do with each other. And I said, yes, that's exactly how we go about this. And eventually, the Maltese might warm up to the puppy because now it's like, okay, cool. Like, you know, you're not always on 10. So it's not so off put. Or they just never, you know, like each other. The puppy will like that, the Maltese, but will learn like I can't play or interact with you because I will be corrected. But the Maltese doesn't care because Maltese is old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know, so in your case, you know, they'll play with each other when the cat is willing and wanting, but then when it just wants to go from point A to point B, it's like, well, I don't want that now.
Right. So it's like, will Clyde understand that like they can play together? Like we want them to be able to get along,
Mhm.
but will he understand the boundaries? I guess then.
Yeah. So I mean, like let's say Charlie initiates the play by like pawing at him, like Clyde will can recognize like, oh, like now we can play.
Okay.
But then when it's just like, you know, Charlie walking across the room and Clyde assumes play, right? Because how old is Charlie?
He's 7,
he's
8
the
years
senior
old.
cat.
Oh, he's an older guy too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that makes more sense then because um the hierarchy would be you guys, Charlie, and then Clyde. Okay, so Clyde's bottom of the barrel. So you guys can decide when to start play, not Clyde, right? Charlie can decide when to start play because he's the older, right? He's I don't know what how in cat years if he's a senior or not, but he's 7 to 8 to me is like that's old, right?
Yeah.
That for Clyde, because he's in that puppy mentality and he's play, 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 it's gonna be disproportionate, right? They're on two different levels. So it's like Clyde can play when Charlie decides to play. But then when Clyde tries to initiate it, I would correct it for Charlie, knowing that Charlie isn't going to reciprocate. If Charlie would reciprocate more often than not, then I would say it's up to you to determine how that works, right?
So
But if
be
it's
really
like more
cognizant.
often than not, he's just not having it, then I don't let him. I correct Clyde.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I got to take note then. We're kind of like, I don't know how Charlie's more often than not if he's like not okay with it or if he's just like,
Sure. And if
more
it seems
into it.
inconsistent, then you make the decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Then just make the decision and you make life easier for everybody because they don't care, right? Charlie would only care if like he's feeling harassed, and then what you would start to see is he'd start hiding because he's like, I can't even walk across the living room without this dog coming at me.
Right.
Right? So then you start to see them seclude themselves, or Clyde will learn the bad habit of I can start play whenever I want with no boundaries, you know, and that will apply to anything. So like if someone maybe a friend brought a dog over who's like a social dog, but maybe Clyde is too much because Clyde's never been told no. Clyde's never been corrected. Clyde's never been told like it's not always playtime. And then he keeps, you know, harassing that dog, and then you're gonna see there's gonna be tension there.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I would just, either observe or just make the decision yourself, say, yep, nope, we're going to correct them and not allow him. But if Charlie initiates play, that's perfectly fine because he's wanting it. Now, if Charlie initiates play, ends it, and tries to walk away, and you can recognize Charlie's done, and then Clyde's like, more, you would correct there.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Because Charlie said we're good. And then Clyde's like, I'm still ready to go.
Yeah.
Then I stop it.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like my pit. I took my pit out for a long walk with my girlfriend's dog the other day, and her dog's younger. My dog is like, Lex is 8 years old. Her dog's like just around under a year. So her dog's play, right? My pit is past play. So we went for like an hour and a half walk, and I think my pit played with her for like maybe 10 minutes. And that was it. And then she's like, I'm just going to walk around and sniff and explore stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like but before, when she was a pup, it would have been the entire time, like running around, playing and chasing and all that stuff. So
Okay.
things change over time. So, but if you're not proactive about putting rules on Clyde, he can be one of those dogs that's just so pushy that annoys other dogs. And then if that dog corrects him, it's valid in their world. But the problem is you don't know to what extent that dog will correct, because some dogs will overcorrect. So that's why I always put it on to humans and say, don't wait for the dogs to establish it themselves. You do it because you don't know where they're going to go with it.
So
Okay.
that actually, something that actually reminds me of what happened today in the park. So we've been trying to like socialize him a little bit more. And it's not a dog park. It's like just a regular park, but dogs are allowed in it. So we like it because it's big, right? So there's usually not like a crazy amount of dogs.
Same dogs.
And it's
too,
usually the same dogs
that
and stuff.
We've met 20 times.
So like the first time I like went there, and after he had all his vaccinations, took him off leash, and he was like playing fine. He had like the best time ever with these other dogs, right? And then it was just that one time. But now like I go back and he is like not really social with the other dogs. He kind of wants nothing to do with them. And then like he's kind of a baby about them. And like when like if we're coming into the park and there's other dogs there and they come approach him, like he gets like really submissive and he like tries to run away, and he doesn't.
Oh, sure. How old is he now?
He's like 5.5 months.
Okay, so he's probably in some kind of phase.
It's a phase. Okay. Because then today that happened, and he was trying to run away, and a Cocker Spaniel came and like really like aggressively tried to correct him and like had him pinned down on the floor. So I wasn't sure if that was like a healthy correction and this is just what dogs do, or if I was like to step in. The owner stepped in.
Let me get this timeline straight. So when's the first time you took him to that park?
When was that? Let's say it was like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay, so 2 to 3 weeks ago. First experience, fun.
Wasn't the first experience at the park, but it was the first experience off leash playing with a group of dogs. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then and it was just fun, right? Like he was running around.
So yeah.
Okay. No corrections from other dogs.
No.
Okay. And then you come back like the next day or a few days later.
Yeah.
And then you see a shift.
Yes.
Okay. And with the same dogs that he played with the first time.
No.
Different dogs.
Different dogs.
Okay. Bigger dogs.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't there, but
No, it's like a mix of big and small.
Okay, so same sizes as like the first
Same
time.
sizes. Yeah.
Okay. Intensity wise, like when they greeted him, like were they like, like really interested, or was it just like, like polite, kind of like sniff each other, or them sniffing him?
Sure. The second time, after like the good time, the next time we went back, it was like really intense, and like there was like a gang of dogs, and I was like, whoa! So I like picked him up.
Okay.
Or no, I didn't even pick him up because he like ran around, and then I was like, this isn't a good idea right now. Maybe this group of dogs is just like too much. So we just like left.
Okay.
But then today when I was there again, it was like more chill, and he still didn't want anything to do with the dogs.
Okay. And this is the third time now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what happened with the spaniel?
Clyde was trying to run away from it, and the spaniel chased after him. And then I'm not sure how he if he was just faster or like how he got him on the ground, but it happened so fast.
So was the spaniel like going to like sniff him and then Clyde took off? Or like how did that running away from the spaniel happen?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Because I was like throwing the ball with him, and then like because it was just him and I, we were just throwing the ball, playing fetch, and then the spaniel came. It wasn't like immediately, so I'm not sure what triggered it. I mean, I was like watching him, but I guess I just didn't notice
Okay.
what happened.
So a couple of things to know is whenever I get dogs that have reactivity issues, one of the most common things that I hear are at either around 6 months or at around a year, something happens, right? So like we have a dog that we trained, his name is Taco. He's like a mini golden doodle. And he was friendly all his life until like around a year, he was attacked by an off-leash dog. And the next day, he was super reactive to any dogs on the leash. So you see a dog, he would just start lunging and barking. Okay. And I when I was talking to them, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense because at 6 months and at a year, they're pivotal psychological shifts in a dog's life. And then when there's a negative, like a bad experience that's not handled correctly, almost always like a light switch. The next day going forward, dog reactive. Okay. And sometimes it can be delayed. Sometimes something can happen and it won't show up till like a little bit later. But they almost always, the owners will tell me about something that happened around the 6 months or at around a year. Okay. So I think that second experience, he was insecure because they were too intense.
They were really intense.
Yeah.
And I noticed that too. And it was like, okay, this is not a good idea.
Right. So I would have left him because when you remove him, I'm not saying you made it traumatic, but he didn't learn how to handle it. Okay. Like, even if he tried to run away from it and stuff, like I just like, so when we get in my puppy head start here, we've had an influx of puppies recently. And we had one puppy, his name's Bill Murray. Yeah. And we had that day, I think we had like 3 other puppies and we put them in the playpen. And I removed myself from the playpen because he kept hovering next to me. So if I would have stayed in there, he would have used me as a security blanket. He would have not opened up. And it took like 15 to 20 minutes of all the other puppies running up to him and poking at him and prodding at him and sniffing him. And he tried to jump out the pen and he tried to get away. And eventually he's like, well, I can't run away from this. Can't avoid it. Curiosity comes out. And now he plays normally. Okay. And it's happened with at least like 3 to 4 of the puppies that we've had come to our puppy head start, where in the beginning they're super awkward and they want to run away. So we remove ourselves. So they're stuck and they have to learn how to socialize. Okay.
Yeah, because he does do that. He like lingers around me, or he'll go like linger around like some
else.
other person, another dog owner, you know?
Right. So that's he's being insecure. So if he were to hover around you, what I do is I put myself in the middle of the dogs. You know, so if I get a dog that keeps hovering or a puppy that keeps hovering, you know, if there's a large enough group of dogs, I will intentionally walk in the group of dogs. And it's funny because you'll be in the group of dogs and then you'll see your dog on the outside. Because they don't want to come into the social space. Okay. And so if they really want to be with you, they have to confront that problem. Okay. What I would suggest is I would keep an eye on that because that's definitely antisocial behavior.
Yeah.
And if you remove him from something, he does not learn how to handle stress. It's kind of like social anxiety, if you will. Right. So like quarantine, I'm sure has made a lot of people antisocial in the sense of like, they don't know how to like, just like I can shoot the shit with anybody, you know, because I do this for a living. Like I talk to clients all the time. So my social muscle, because it's like a muscle, is fine because I talk to people on a regular basis. But people who are like really quarantining and stuff, I bet you once things go back to normal and be super awkward.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like we experienced that. It was like I don't know, like the first quarantine after that shelter in place was lifted. It was just like, oh my God, are we going to go hang out with friends?
Yeah, it's awkward, you know?
Yeah.
So in order for him to learn that stuff, I just keep him in the context, you know? And like we've even had some puppies where they get so flighty of the social aspect that they'll start snapping at the other dogs, and we would correct them. And we're teaching them like if you get stressed in a social situation, this is not a valid response,
Okay.
right? You just have to open up. And eventually they come around to it, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
The concern is so like the park though, it's not like that. The second time I took him, there was just like so many dogs, and I really couldn't remove him that soon after the incident because they were all and he was running. So it was like they just like were relentless and they were not like giving up on him. So
and what I would do is seeing that and knowing that now is like, let's say you went when there was 20 dogs and it did not go well. The next time I pass by the park, if there's 20 dogs, I go, I'm not going to come in today.
Gotcha.
okay, I was gonna ask you, should we like
Because
try
you
it
don't even
again?
put them in the situation. You know, so like then maybe there's a day when there's 5 dogs. I bring him in, right? And then maybe he's really comfortable with 5 dogs. And I go, okay, because I want to push him. I go another day when there's 10 dogs, you know, and do what's realistic to you. Let's say you don't like it when there's 20 dogs, because I wouldn't like it when if there was 20 dogs.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and honestly, there was probably like there was less than 10. I don't know. I'm kind of being dramatic. It just seemed like a lot.
Sure. You know, because the more dogs there are, the more likely there is to be just personalities that shouldn't be there. You know,
Yeah.
because just because you go to a dog park and there's dogs there doesn't mean all those dogs should actually be there. You know, like sometimes people bring dogs that should not be at a dog park and then they bite someone's dog and they grab their dog and leave. Like that stuff literally happens.
Yeah.
So, and you determine that if for you, realistically speaking, you're like, my comfort zone is with Clyde is around 5 dogs and that's like our limit. I don't care.
Okay.
You know, like that's realistic to you. So when I get my antisocial dogs that I work with, I tell the owner, don't worry about the dog park. Like that's not realistic. Okay. I was like, but your friend's dog or, you know, a group of friends' dogs, that's realistic because you would see them on a regular basis.
Right.
It'd be the same dogs, and you can build up to multiple dogs because your dog will have met them 100 times.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to push them into a dog park where the dog's already not social and then knows none of these dogs. And then you get all these varying personality types. Dogs that like to mount, dogs like to bark, dogs that like to like tackle other dogs. You know, like that may not be their play style. So but yeah, you can avoid the problem, and like he's not gonna, like that's not gonna have a, the issue is when you introduce him and you don't allow him to recover.
Okay.
By taking him out of this.
That makes sense.
Okay, got it.
That's the problem.
At what point though is it just like not a good idea at what point do you have to step in, I guess? Like how do you know?
If he starts to get too snappy,
If he starts getting snappy?
yeah, where he's like back off, because then he's getting overloaded with stress, then he's going into fight response, and I would correct him
Okay.
and keep him in. I would keep him in the social space. You know, just like the puppies here, if they get out of line, we correct them, and then we leave them with each other, because that's how they learn. They go, okay, well, I can't run from you, I can't avoid you, and I can't fight you. That just means, so submission is it can also be referred to as acceptance. Like I'm here now. So once acceptance kicks in, then it's like, okay, now I guess I'll open up and socialize.
Gotcha.
So it's like if somebody drags you to a party you don't want to go to, right? And you're like, and you're just sitting there, you're just not having a good time, right? Only you can decide to like, oh, like, you know what? If I'm gonna be here for the next 3 hours, I might as well just have some fun.
Yep.
That's the acceptance. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep.
How do we create that environment though? You were saying like if there's a lot of dogs, you would go in the mix and like so that he can't like use you as a security blanket.
Mhm.
If we're out there and let's say because there's usually like maybe like on average like 3 other dogs.
Okay.
If there's like no like almost like group of dogs I can go stand in because they're all running around kind of chasing a ball and stuff, like how would I
Then I would just keep moving, and then moving and like staying as close to where the action is.
okay.
Because like let's say like they're playing in like a bubble, right? And they're not grouped together. that playing and that running around is still energy. It's still social energy that he's like, well, do I want to like go in there with all those dogs running around? You know? So you can either plant yourself there or just keep yourself moving and just kind of falling where the dogs are to keep him moving, as opposed to having him lock up and sit down and like not want to do anything. Because once he settles and like just decides to lock on, he's not going to come out of that shell, most likely. If anything, he'll become more defensive. So like if a dog comes into your social space, he might get defensive because he's like, no, this is our space.
Yeah. And he's kind of around us, but like then he'll like go off and he'll like entertain himself. But he's just like if you're at a party, he's like at the far distant corner, like doing something by himself, away, furthest away from everyone else.
Yeah. And that's antisocial behavior.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not like so, and some dogs are indifferent to other dogs, right? Not all dogs really want to engage. Like, so like my pit, like when she was a pup, when she was younger, like she would play with everybody. Now she's older and she's selective of like who she'll play with and how long she'll play with them, but she's older.
Sure.
So to a degree, that's antisocial behavior, but it's also social because she's not starting fights.
Because she's what?
Not starting fights.
Okay.
Like she's not like snapping at dogs coming at her to trying to play. She just ignores them, So like for Clyde, I would just keep an eye on him because the main thing is if reactivity starts to come around. Okay.
And he's
So
if what?
like reactivity.
He's not biking back. Well, so I'm sorry. I'm like, I wasn't prepared to like talk about this. So I'm kind of remembering more like facts that may be pertinent as we're talking. But for the second time we went to the park and the group of dogs kind of like started coming around him, like high energy, and he didn't like it. He like freaked out and tried to get away. And like as a group, it was crazy. It was like a school of fish. They were just like following him, right?
Yep.
And I couldn't even get to him. So he actually ran out of the park. Mm. So like the park is like fenced in and there's like this one entrance, which I wasn't even aware that he was aware of that. That's where the one entrance was until this incident happened. So me and like some other random person like went running after him because he had his leash on, thankfully. And I like caught him, but like he was on his way home. Like he was just like peace. So that's how that ended. So I don't know if that's reactivity or what that was.
No, so that's flight response.
Okay.
That's going, I'm scared, I'm getting out of here.
And he got out. Like he straight up got out. So
so knowing that, like for me personally, like the way I would have remedied that was I would have picked up his leash, not said anything, don't scold him, just because he doesn't know. Re-enter the dog park and I walk around with him on the leash.
Okay.
Because now you're removing flight response. And you probably see him like jump around as dogs try to sniff him and he's like, and I just hold him, just keep him there, keep him moving until eventually he resolves it and settles down.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, so it's like, I guess like, if we have a couple and they bring them over to like a family event and like, it's like maybe the boyfriend and girlfriend, it's the boyfriend's family. And it's like the girlfriend meets like everybody, and it's just like everybody's coming at you at one time. You're just like, holy shit. It's like so many people to talk to at once. Right. But then you get past it.
Yeah. Okay.
Some people get past it. I'm sure some people go, I'm overwhelmed. I need to remove myself. But humans are a bit different because, there might be people that actually just leave entirely and bail
just run out of the house.
Yeah, I'm sure that stuff happens because that we're animals. We have the same responses.
Right.
But for him, the issue is if he runs away, it's a problem.
He was running. He clearly ran away.
A human would call up an Uber and catch an Uber home.
Right.
That. So that's the difference. But same context.
Okay. And then what does it tell you about? You were asking a lot of about what triggered the Cocker Spaniel to like pin him down, and the Cocker Spaniel was like showing teeth.
Yeah.
Like he was like looked like he was about to like nip him or like trying to nip him before that Cocker's owner came in and like diffuse the situation a little bit. Should I have been concerned that the Cocker was like being so aggressive? Because I didn't do anything.
We would need to know why. We would need to know So like let's say Clyde was playing with the cocker and like you were distracted and like bit the cocker spaniel's ear. And then the spaniel went to correct him and he's like, ugh, and he tries to fly, right? And the cocker spaniel goes, nope, I'm gonna follow through with this, right? I would understand that.
Sure.
Okay. And the cocker spaniel was simply just establishing like, you don't do that to me, right? Uh, but if it was just like, because the other potential could possibly be if Clyde was still insecure about the situation and was beginning to fly or or run again, it triggered a bully response from the cocker spaniel because
I
the
think that's what
cocker
it
then
was.
saw weakness
Because Clyde was like trying to get away. Like he wasn't trying to play with
and
anyone.
it pulls out more either bully type behavior or prey drive from the dog when they see that flight response. Like dogs can't help it's literally a light switch. So it's like let's say a kid is petting a dog and the dog snaps at the kid as a correction and the kid goes ah. Sometimes it'll pull out more and the dog will actually bite because when the kid goes back in response to the initial snap, it triggers like a predatory prey drive response of like when I see that I bite. Okay, it's not intentional, it's not pre-planned, it's literally uh, action response reaction. Okay, so for the cocker spaniel potentially something triggered, Clyde wants to run and spaniel just kicked into gear. Okay, and in our world we're compassionate, we're empathetic, we have sympathy or whatever, and we save animals like the runts, weak animals, ugly animals with like cleft lips and like deformities, and we reconstructive surgery, like we do all that stuff, right? They don't do that in the animal world, right? They target weak energy and they kill it or they remove it or they do something about it because that is, if that dog replicated, it's replicating those genes. So like when humans breed, right? So that's why there's responsible and irresponsible breeding or whatever. Responsible breeders would not breed a dog that has anxious or like fear, nervous, like genetically just wired to be, because it's okay to be fearful, anxious, or nervous in response to something. But there's dogs that are just genetically wired to always be anxious or nervous or fearful. And those genes, animals would not want to procreate. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
So like humans, we control it by just not breeding those dogs. And in the animal world, they control it by either not nursing.
Eliminating it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I got you. Yeah.
So and it's funny because I always talk to people about these examples and you're actually like proof of it happening, where I'll tell people if there's something that happens at the dog park and the dogs don't like it, you'll, like you said, they just start to pursue them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In your case, it was more so just like, who is this new dog? And then he tried to fly. So everybody's like, whoa, you're not getting away from us, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes, there'll be like a weak energy and all the dogs will just zone in because they're like, whoa, like you shouldn't be around.
Oh my God.
Oh.
So how do we socialize him? Well, I feel like we all can like,
Well,
we've confirmed he has weak energy for sure.
but
How do you socialize
at
him
the
then?
same time, I don't know if this is important, but like we're talking all bad situations. But like my sister has a dog. We spent 2 days with them. They got along for 2 days.
But they didn't play. They just ignored each other.
Yeah, but they were fine. They didn't get aggressive.
Yeah, like he can coexist with other dogs. He just doesn't show any interest.
He met one of those racing dogs, those huge ones, the other day, and they were fine with each other in that same park, but it was just the two of them.
Yeah. Which, that might be his thing where he's good in small one-on-one or, one-on-two scenarios. And again, it just comes down to what's realistic to you. Like let's say everybody in your family had a dog and you would go to family events where there'd be 10 other dogs, then that would be realistic.
Right.
Because it's going to be a recurring thing and you don't want him being the one insecure dog with the 10 other dogs. So I would say you keep exposing him. But if it's like, he, he plays with the dog here and there and stuff like that. Like I'm all for pushing dogs, but at the same time, I'm not all for pushing dogs for things that would not be realistic to that dog's life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so unless we're putting him in the situation, he's never going to be around more than probably 2 or 3 dogs at a time.
Yeah. I mean, everyone
Yeah.
has a dog in our family, so he'll probably be around like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
The other counter to that would be, I just care about how he is. Like if you're walking with Clyde and he walks past dogs and he minds his business and he does good with small groups of 2 to 3 dogs, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I would care about is like he's antisocial, right? And then you start to see lunging and barking at dogs on the leash.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
we have a problem.
Can do that.
Now that's a problem. Okay, so
Yeah.
keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. Because I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but when I get puppies that develop reactivity, those are some of the signs. Okay, because it's antisocial behavior. So when he's off leash, he can run away. When he's on leash, he can't run away. So then he goes, so it's fight or flight, right?
Yeah,
'Cause he
that was
can't
going to be
run
a question, and sorry to interject, but at this age, is it probably better to just not let the leash go and let him kind of run freely, especially if there's somewhere he can run, out the
Yeah.
door and stuff?
Well, for me, like I'm not a big fan of letting dogs off leash unless it's in a fully enclosed area,
Yeah.
or if they've been off leash trained.
Okay.
Okay.
That's my personal preference, because then we get situations like this, because if he's off leash trained, one, not very likely that he's going to try to book it. 2, if he did, you can stop it and
Okay.
you can get him back. If he's in a situation like that's in like a backyard or a dog park that's fully enclosed, then he can run around all he wants. I know he's not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
When you say not off, like, so when we let him run around that park that's not fully enclosed, his leash is on, but like we're not holding it.
Correct.
Is that the same thing as off leash?
Off leashes, he's completely nothing other than the e-collar.
So would you do that? Like, do you think that's okay that we're letting him run around with his leash dragging behind him?
It's a personal preference. For me personally, I wouldn't do it, just because like that time he got away from you, right?
Yeah, you can still
Yeah.
get out
And
too.
you got him because he had the leash on, so that was wise. But there's still the factor of like, well, what if it happens again, and what if I don't get to him in time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
But
concerning.
in that moment, it's not about obedience. You could come to the best degree with the treats that you're doing now, but in that moment, he was scared and he was running away.
Yeah.
Right. So, when we do e-collar training, what makes it so effective is that, let's say Clyde, for whatever reason, got spooked and tried to run away. I have something that can override that. Okay. So it's not so much, yes, the obedience is to a much higher level degree. But in the moment of like, I'm running for my life, it's not about come over here. It's about making him more scared of running away from you than he is running away from the situation.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And I teach this to all my clients, because the common thought process is, if I train my dog, excellent recall, they'll come to me no matter what. And I go, nope, because it's much different. Like if you're in a burning building and you're running away from the burning building, so someone, hey, no, come back. Like, are you really going to come back?
No.
It's a burning building, right?
Right.
You're getting away from it. It's the same thing for the dog.
Okay.
But now I have something to make them return, right? It's like, get over here or else. Okay. And it's something that he feels, something that's physical, something that will be very uncomfortable, but it's either that or you risk, losing your dog, or your dog getting hit by a car or something like that. So that's the reality of things, And I just posted a video on my Instagram of me working with one of Maddie's friends, who's a client, and he's pretty much almost 100% off leash trained. And we're at Oz Park, and there was a lot of squirrels, and you see them, just book it to the squirrels. And the owner issued the recall. Dog, boom, 180 right away.
Wow.
Then I was like, let him go again. And then he gives him the permission. He books it back to the squirrel. And as he's going to the squirrel, I was like, call him. And he just, boop, U-turns, comes
Oh my
right back.
goodness. That's
Okay,
amazing.
like that. that's obedience because there's no fear, there's no flight response kicking in. It's just a dog and drive, a dog having fun, chasing something, right? When a dog goes into flight or fear response, that's a totally different ballgame.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So then I'm sorry, just one last question
Yeah.
about the socialization thing. So with like the cocker, when he sensed that Clyde was weak and he got really aggressive in that situation, do you suggest just like still just putting Clyde back in back with the cocker
No,
spaniel?
it's really hard to say. Because remember, like, I'm not a big fan of dogs correcting dogs because you don't know how far they're going to take it.
Right. And that's
Right.
what was like kind of
My
concerning.
dogs, I let correct because I know where they'll go because they're my dogs, right? Other people's dogs, I don't because, I've had people say like, oh yeah, my dog did a correction to another dog and that dog reciprocated by attacking my dog.
Mhm.
They just went, your dog came at a 2, their dog came at a 10. Like stuff like that
Yeah.
happens.
So
Right.
how do I interject without like traumatizing him?
Well, one would be, like did the owner just pull their dog away, or did their owner like actively get their dog to like disengage?
Actively
Those
get the dog to disengage
by doing what?
by like calling the dog's name and
Okay,
like walking towards the dog.
Yeah. So as FYI, they did their part to diffuse the situation for Clyde. Okay. However, what they did not teach their dog to not do that again. Just want you to be aware of that.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
two different things. Because for me, and then again, I need to know the situation in order to go, was the Cocker Spaniel's response valid? Okay. If it was just Clyde was just trying to run away and he overcompensated by bullying him, it doesn't. In their world, it adds up. In our world, it doesn't.
And
Okay.
it had to have been, that's what it was. Like there wasn't a chance for anything else to have happened because Clyde was just like not feeling it.
Yeah, because so like if it was me, I would have, if I saw that and I go, nope, this is not appropriate, I would have came in and jabbed the Cocker Spaniel and corrected him for essentially dominating or bullying Clyde.
Yeah.
Right. Because now potentially, the next time that Spaniel is there and he sees Clyde, he might go right back to that behavior because it's the last thing he remembered. Okay. When you call a dog away from something, remember, dogs are like a light switch. It goes from I'm bullying you to okay, coming. Okay. They switch. Okay. But if it was he was dominating and I come in and I go, boom, and the dog goes, oh crap. And I go, you don't do that. And the dog goes, okay. The next time I see Clyde, I'm not going to bully him. That's the difference.
Okay.
Got it.
Now for Clyde, they both resolved the issue for Clyde because one pressure was removed, one pressure is removed in any of those situations, either through a correction or through the dog being called away. Okay. The worst thing that usually happens is when dogs go into get into a fight or a scuffle is the owners pull them away, and this is both dogs actively engaged. They pull them away and then they're still going at each other, and then they remove them, and the last thing they remember is we were going at each other. Okay. In Clyde's experience, he was just being dominated. Right. Now let's say they remove the dog and Clyde went scurrying away. That's where I would grab him and bring him back in. Okay. But then the Cocker Spaniel would have to be under control. Because then if you bring him back and the Cocker Spaniel goes back to it, he's like, oh, damn it. He's like, this is
he's like, this is not fun anymore.
Yeah. It has to be controlled.
Okay.
So, and that's stuff that's kind of out of your hands because like, I'm not like, you can't go up to someone's dog, like jab your dog.
Right.
And like put him under control.
Dog.
Yeah. Like you can't do that.
Right.
So that's just, how life is or whatever. But I would keep an eye on Clyde because that could be a fairly traumatic experience for him at the age that he's at right now.
Okay. And what you had mentioned e-collar, was it 6 months?
6 months.
6 months. And so I can't recall if we have one or maybe two more sessions with you. So we're getting pretty close to that 6 month mark.
I believe you're hip 2.
I think so too. Would it be appropriate with like your program to wait maybe 2 more weeks and then do like our last 2 sessions and start talking about e-collar, or is that like a whole nother kind of training you do?
I have no problem with that, but we wouldn't do e-collar over Zoom. We would do it.
Oh, that's like okay. Interesting.
It's not that it can't be done. Like I've done a couple of e-collar Zooms, and I've done it with people like in Michigan or whatever.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I was ignorant to that part. So
Yeah. No, for me personally, like going to someone's home to do one-on-one puppy training isn't worth my time.
right.
Like I could send one of my trainers, but I do for me, this is one, because I know puppy stuff is simple. Like this has been a lot of FYI.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Stuff
not really
that people
helpful.
don't think
for us.
about. They care about this. People think sit, stay down, come, like treats. I go, sure, you can do that.
Right.
But let me give you all the info that you wouldn't know or pick up anywhere else, because that's what's important. Like this stuff that you asked today is very important. Okay. Because that's developmental, that's behavioral. Behavior is the hardest thing to fix. You can teach a dog to sit at any age. Okay. The whole can't teach an old dog new tricks is a myth. It's a lie. Any age. Behavior is always the most important. Okay. So it's like, would you rather raise a kid who's a good person or a kid that's like a genius with everything but a bad person?
Right.
And maybe some people don't care about that stuff. That's fine. But that's how I approach it.
That makes sense.
So what you could do, is, if you feel like you've gotten all your FYI and stuff can always pop up, we just go to the tree training stuff. It doesn't hurt. Okay. And I can go over that with you. And if you want more of like, and then save one of them where I go over the e-collar and how it works and the theory behind it and the function, then that could be another one as well. And then once Clyde hits 6 months, you just reach out and then we'll put you on the calendar or whatever. My rate for e-collar, it used to be for puppies, it was one rate, for adult dogs another rate. Now it's just one flat rate.
Okay.
Because I essentially, the reason why it's so expensive or more expensive is because you're doing the program, and as long as you do the homework and you reinforce it and you understand just the realistic levels of control and how life works and everything, I've trained your dog for life. Other trainers are cheaper, and then the owner's like, oh, but this guy's cheaper. I'm like, yeah, but you're gonna keep going to him.
Right.
Like I train your dog and I don't see you again.
Right.
It's a difference. So, but yeah, we could do that. It's not a problem. And then you can wait, till he's older to, like, I personally don't care, because after 6 months, he can be trained at any point on the remote collar. And then it's just the question is like the level of control that you want. So,
Okay.
Yeah, so he'll hit the 6 month mark at the end of December, essentially, right around Christmas. So
Yeah.
the other thing you want to think about is that, when we train, like I have my facility, of course. So we leave it up to the clients. Some people are still meeting at Oz Park. Most people have moved to the facility. Is when you're training, the weather doesn't matter. Right? Like there's no exceptions in the dog world. Like, oh, it's cold today, so like I'm gonna behave differently. Like it has to happen. So just keep that in mind, because that's something I think people don't keep in mind. And then they're like, holy crap, like it's snowing and cold out and I don't want to be walking my dog for 30 minutes,
Oh, I hear you. Okay.
Yeah. And plus he's a pup too. Like, it might be too cold for him. And then it's like you started training and now it's too cold for him.
Right.
And now you're doing these classes because you have to, but then you can't really do much with them because he won't be out there that long. Does that make sense?
That's actually a good point.
Yeah,
so
maybe
we're
we
not
might-
like making it harder in the future to train him on e-collar if we wait a little,
No.
if we wait a few months past 6.
Okay.
No.
That's good to know.
My suggestion would be like you wait and then you do it at a time where you would be practicing things regularly. Because then what will happen is you would learn and develop all these skills, and then come next winter, it's very common that people get lazy. They don't do as much. The dogs regress a little. As long as you have like, a dog with no behavioral issues, not the biggest problem. But then come the springtime, people email me all the time, and I just tell them, raise your number. That's almost always the answer, is raise your number, or they're doing something incorrectly,
Yeah.
you know? And
And
then so
you
I'll
said
ask
raise the
questions.
correction number.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Call it
okay.
Almost always the answer, okay?
Okay.
So like 95% of the people that email me, that fixes the problem.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then I go, now you can book a lesson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So, okay, guys.
All
Awesome.
right.
Thank you.
for your time.
No worries. So yeah, think about what you want to cover. You know, we could do treat stuff or whatever. If you want to learn about e-collar sooner rather than later, I can go over that with you as well. If you want to save these classes and just see what happens, you know, and then reach out when it's like, hey, we noticed he's being reactive, like you said, like what can we do or whatever. Or should we start the e-collar now because now he's being reactive and we weren't planning on that, you know. I don't care what you do, you just let us know and then we'll take care of it.
Great.
Cool. Thank
Awesome.
you so much, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
No worries. You guys take care. Have a good evening.
Yeah, you
too.
too. Take care.
Bye.